Some of the hardest parts of parenting are the parts nobody really prepares you for. Not the schedules, not the lunchboxes, not the logistics. I'm talking about the inner stuff. The voice in your head that says, you are not doing enough. The pressure to get it right. The comparison, the guilt, the feeling that somehow everyone else got the manual and you didn't. Because parenting doesn't just ask you to raise a child. It asks you to meet yourself. It brings up your fears, your doubts, your wounds, your inner child, and all the parts of you that still wonder, am I enough? And here's the truth. So many adults are out here trying to raise emotionally healthy children while still learning how to become emotionally healthy themselves. That's not failure, that's just being human. So today we're going to talk about what it really means to parent from a place of awareness instead of shame, how imposter syndrome shows up in parenting, why comparison keeps so many of us stuck, how healing our inner world changes the way we show up for our kids, and why connection, compassion, and courage matter so much more than perfection ever will. Because you do not have to be a perfect parent to be a powerful one. And maybe happiness doesn't come from becoming someone else. Maybe it comes from finally meeting yourself with honesty, dignity, and grace. My today guest, May Kesem, is a psychological counselor, certified positive discipline educator, encouragement consultant, and most importantly, a mother dedicated to empowering women and families to live with strength, confidence, and compassion. With over 15 years of experience working across cultures, May works with parents, educators, and mothers to help them reclaim their inner voice, embrace their power, and raise with the next generation with courage, empathy, and authenticity. She's also the founder of The Mindful Connection, a platform devoted to a family well-being and mindful living. May also created Parenting with Positive Discipline, an online community for parents to connect with each other, share resources, and support one another on this crazy journey. Let's go into it. May, welcome. Thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you for having me, Luca. I'm happy to be here.
We scheduled it a while ago, but we made it, and I'm very, very happy. And I want to go straight into it because we have a very interesting subject. Yeah. And I would like to ask you, my first question would be, what is the state of parenthood today, and how is it like that it's so misunderstood?
It's a good question, and it's a good question to set the stage. There's a lot of things happening with parents these days, and I think a lot of the times people think that there should be a manual for parenting, and there are manuals out there. There have been manuals, from early on, even with like Dr. Spock and things like that, and what to expect when you're. There's a lot of manuals out there, but what the manuals don't tell parents is the stuff that is not written in the books, that how to be a good parent, how to parent in a way that feels authentic, that feels genuine, that feels good for you. And nobody can really tell you that. And I think overall, parents are very overwhelmed these days. People are running from place to place, taking to sports practice, for after-school activities, for trying to manage the home, trying to be a professional if you're a working mom. There's so much happening.
No, I just wanted to ask you, do you know that we have the group that moms who want it all? We have like a WhatsApp group, and so this is exactly my target audience, moms who want it all, because you also want to have a career, but you want to be in fit, and you want to be you want to train every day, but then you also want to be that mom that always goes and volunteers for the trips for school, and then you want to be present with your kid, but then you have the email from work, and we take so much on our shoulders, and we are so stressed. And then you mentioned before how is it nobody gives you a manual to be like a good parent. So I'm even asking, like, what is a good parent? In your eyes, or how do I know that I'm a good parent?
That's a very tough question, and maybe good is not possibly the best word that we can use, but I think it's good enough.
Good enough. Okay, I
You
love
know?
that. So, okay, so how do we know
Yeah.
the good enough then parenting? How
Yeah.
can we describe it, or how can we
When do you know that you're doing well?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
And so I think, I mean, there's the basic level where we just look at, okay, so what's happening in my home? You know, how are my kids feeling? How is my partner feeling? How am I feeling? You know, and a lot of the stuff that I think we're going to talk about today is very much related to intuition and how you're feeling about things, how you're viewing yourself, others, life. You know, is your stress level up here, you know, or are you feeling like you're on top of it? And you just mentioned that group about, you know, moms who want it all. And it's like, you can't have it all. You know, you can, but we have to work on being able to accept where we are. And there's no straight answer. There's no formula that says if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to be a great parent. It's not about that. But it's really just about knowing where you are and having boundaries, knowing when to say no, how to take care of yourself, you know, all of these kinds of things that really help you understand what it means to be good enough.
And I know that you work a lot with the families, right, and with mothers. And so, what do you see? What's happening there, like in right now? Like, what's the situation? And you said that we are like so. I think that we're so harsh on ourselves, and we're like so. I don't know. How do you say?
We're judgmental.
Exactly. Yeah. Judgmental, and you know, like zero self-compassion, and we are very, we're very harsh on ourselves. So, what do you see? What's happening? Of course, without giving names.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of judgment of ourselves and of others. And I think there's obviously a lot of social comparisons as well, competition. You know, it's like, you know, sometimes you just want to say, like, focus on yourself and your own life and your own development and that you and your family, rather than constantly seeing, like, looking outwards. And I think a lot of this has to do with how we were raised even as children. You know, when now you're a parent, you're an adult, but a lot of it has to do with, I'm not good enough. You got communication, you got a message when you were very young that says something about you is not enough. And I think we'll talk about that more later on,
talk about
you know.
more. Yeah.
But what I see a lot in my private practice, or even, you know, I work with schools as well, and there is a general overwhelm. You know, parents don't know where to start. There's too much happening. They don't know how to sometimes, I think it's really hard for parents to say, I can't give it all to my kids. It's not just moms who want it all, but they also want it all for their kids. So, you know, you want them to learn music, to learn art, to do sports, to be good at school, to have friends. To, you know, there's so many things that we want for our kids because we want them to be the best. We want them to be better than us. And sometimes that can be, you know, that can set the expectation really, really high. And schools sometimes don't help that because there's, you know, depending on, of course, what kind of school, but traditional schooling is set on a model of competition, right?
Yeah.
Who can get the best grades? Who can perform the best? And that's rewarded. And that's why parents also feel like we have to push our kids. We can't let them, you know, fail. We have to get them to be the best. So parents are coming into therapy feeling super overwhelmed. We're seeing kids as young as 6 and 7 years old having panic
6, 7.
attacks. 6, 7, exactly. Oh, that's a whole other topic.
The social media.
Exactly. But yeah, 6, 7. These kids are coming in and they're having like anxiety and panic attacks just because they feel like they have to perform and they have to do so well, and they're not being kids. You know, and
Being just kids, yeah.
They just need to be kids. They just need to play. They shouldn't have all these responsibilities on their shoulders so early on.
I have a million questions, but I'm trying to figure it out. So I will just go first to, you mentioned competition, and I will just mention comparison. So we have comparison, you know, you mentioned at schools, the neighbors, the friends, everything, you know, comparison something that is very existent in our society today. So I want to ask you, so how do we actually, what can we do with it? When can we stop, and when can we, you know, kind of like identify this is what I'm doing?
So comparison is really a very dangerous thing. I mean, it's dangerous, but it's also necessary because we are social creatures, right?
Yeah.
And everything we do is in relation to others. I'm an Adlerian therapist, which just means that I really follow the the therapy of Alfred Adler, who was a colleague of Jung and Freud, and he created individual psychology, and he talked about us being social beings, and that everything is in relation to others. It's relation to ourselves and also to others. So social comparison is a necessity. We can't live without it. And at the same time, as you just said, where do we draw the line to know when is it healthy or when is it actually hurtful for ourselves and for our families? So it also starts very early on. Most of what you'll hear me talk about today, I'm going to tell you, it starts really early on. It starts in childhood, but it's true.
From us, not for them.
Yeah. Because what happens when you have, if you have siblings in the family, for example, oftentimes parents will compare the siblings, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Who's doing better, who's getting better grades, who's listening, who's not listening. From very early age, you are taught that you are in relation to others and you're always being compared to others.
What shall I say? I have twins. But I have the book. So I have the book. I have a whole chapter about comparison. Sorry to cut you in the middle. I have a whole chapter, a whole part in the book about comparison. So it's one of the so it's 99 mistakes I made as a mom. So I compared them with other kids. I compared them between themselves. I compared myself with other moms, and I compared my husband with other husbands. So I basically, did all the mistakes with the so
with comparisons.
So when you said that, like, kids, you compare the kids between that, imagine like twins, of course, like one is like better in something, the other one. So anyways, I just
you're absolutely right. And I think with twins it's even harder because they're twins, right? So there's so much, they're right there next to each other. So it's much more challenging, I think. And also what happens when you compare all the time? So there's always somebody who's better than somebody else, right?
In something.
And it's this lack of being able to accept and to just be okay with who you are and where you are. And, as an adult and even as a parent, when you're looking at your kids, it's about just accepting their differences and their uniqueness. And it's just, that's it. It is what it is.
Encouraging their strengths.
Exactly.
Because you cannot put somebody down like, okay, and we had this a lot in the family when one of them was, with getting better grades, or she was the student of the year for a few years in a row. And then we're like, oh, the other one was upset because she didn't get anything. And then I'm like, wait a second, we have to celebrate here the other one. We cannot just put her down so the other one will feel better, about herself. Like, we just have to be there and we have to be proud of her and encourage her. It's a very tricky job,
I mean, when you're encouraging one person and highlighting them and praising them, what does the other person get, or what do the other people get? And it's the same thing in schools. And, the work that we do with, I'm a positive discipline educator, and the work that we do with families and schools is that you have to, like you just said, you use the exact right word, encouragement. It's positive discipline Adlerian psychology is an encouragement model because we're all feeling discouraged. So how can you move people from discouragement to encouragement? By just appreciating who they are. It's not about, you don't have to be the top performer. When we talk about, student of the week or, employee of the week or teacher, all of these things, yes, they're recognition, but that also means that those that didn't get that recognition are not feeling good.
Exactly.
When you give kids awards and then you don't give others. It's
but
always a winner and a loser, right?
But I had, like, with one of the teachers of my kids in the previous year, apparently some of the kids, they didn't behave well, and then but there were only few kids, and then the whole class got punished. And I was like, wait a second, so why, like, I behave well, but then I'm not getting, they were supposed to do something at the end of the, like, I don't even remember, it was like a whole week of, it was on Friday. So they were if they behave well at the end of the Friday, they got a dance or something, and then she just, like, she punished everybody. They didn't do the dance because there were some people, like, misbehaving. But which message do I get from the fact that, okay, I did my part. I did, I behaved well, and then what do I get out of it?
I mean, I think if you were to ask those other kids that got punished, they'd probably say this is totally unfair. And how are they going to feel towards those kids that were misbehaving? So what kind of environment does that create? It goes back to competition, to pressure, to expectations, instead of just saying, you know what, everyone needs to move into encouragement. And, when I work with positive discipline, when I talk to parents, I'm like, listen, your kids are not misbehaving. They're not naughty kids. They're not bad kids. Yes, sometimes they push our buttons and sometimes they do it on purpose.
Yeah.
But we have to see what Adler called, what is the belief behind the behavior? So if I'm acting out, if I'm feeling discouraged, I'm going to try to find my needs, the needs that I need to get met. I'm going to try to find them in not very constructive or helpful ways. So again, Adler talked about this. He talked about human motivation, and he talked about it being the need for belonging and the need for significance. And those are our two major motivators from infancy. And even, it's even before kids have language, these are the needs that they have. And so they're always striving for that. And us as adults, same thing. So when you're not getting it, you still want to get it, but in the wrong ways.
Exactly. So behind like every bad behavior, there is a need that was unfulfilled, not unfulfilled, like not met.
Yeah, it's not met. It's exactly.
So this is like the bad behavior is actually. But just to go back on what you said, so that I also I used to do like parenting coaching before I was writing, and I got like I have the Calendly on my website, and somebody booked like a 30 minutes, discovery call with me, and she said that she has problems with a girl, and then she feels like there's more to be done, that doesn't know how to handle her, and that she wants to kind of like fix the situation, aka fix the kid.
Exactly.
And I was like, you don't need to, I didn't have the call yet with her, but it was like, you don't have to fix anybody, like here, this is what they have to understand.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite expressions is connection before correction.
Yeah.
You have to connect with the kid before you start correcting and fixing them. Nobody needs to be fixed, especially our kids.
Exactly. I love what you just said, Luca. And this is, connection before correction is one of the main pillars of positive discipline. And I was just talking to a group of parents about this because we were talking about the AI boom and the digital well-being and all of these kinds of things. And it's like we talk about parental control. And I was telling them, I was like, what would happen if we just change that phrase from parental control to parental connection? Because if you're not connecting with your kids, how in the world would you expect them to listen to you, to cooperate, to do what's actually right for them? That's why connection before correction, 100%.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's not my quote, but yeah, it's something that I really relate to.
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about the imposter syndrome because we talked about manuals and all this stuff. So I'm just wondering, how come that like imposter syndromes like comes up to so many people and to so many parents? What's the reason behind it, or what's happening here that so many, they feel there's so much they're failing on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm not a social psychologist, but I think if we were to look historically and where it all started, and I think a big part of it has to do with the openness that's happened in the world and our access to information and our access into a very close look into people's lives because of social media, because of, the whole digital age. And how, if you think about it, before, who are we comparing ourselves to? It was our smaller communities, right? The people around us, our immediate family, our neighbors, the people maybe just in our immediate, communities. And now we're comparing ourselves to the world. So of course we're always going to feel less than. We're never going to feel good enough. And we know that what you see online, what you see in social media is obviously not 100% true.
What happens in reality, you never know. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very curated because everybody wants to show their best face. Most people do.
Yeah. There is also a trend with like emotional parenting and honest parenting. And I think there is a lot of, showing up.
Yeah.
Like showing like the hard part of parenting and not the the filtered parenting.
Exactly. The perfect parent,
right? The perfect parents, yeah.
So there is no such thing as the perfect parent. There's no such thing as perfect anything. So why do we as parents think that we need to be perfect and that our kids need to be perfect? And so, definitely there's imposter syndrome. And I think particularly for moms, I think dads also face it, but I think particularly for moms, this idea that I'm never going to be good enough, that I am, as it said, I'm an imposter, I'm a fake, I will never be what I, as good as fill in the blanks. And a part of that is because of the social comparison, that everything's very open. And another part of it is also because we're discouraged. It goes back to the encouragement model, right? So we're discouraged because of the state of our world today. And there's so much happening, of course. And because parenthood really triggers a lot within us, right? So much comes up. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've learned that, this, some people have it like on a let's say, lighter level. Some people are like, it's very deeply ingrained and I never feel like I'm good enough, and can cause anxiety, can cause depression, it can cause this withdrawal from society and activities, and other people will just feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough in my career, or I'm not being the best parent I could be. So we're always on a spectrum, right? But I think it's worth understanding that sometimes when we were growing up, we're getting the message that mistakes were not okay, that failure was not okay, that our sense of worth had to do with achievement and accomplishment and success. And that's most of the world, right? That's just what our parents knew. And so the society and our worlds have been built around that. So as adults and as parents, we're starting to feel, oh, I'm not good enough because I can't fail. Everything has to do with success and achievement and things like that. So it becomes, it's a belief. It's a very deeply ingrained belief.
And I would also add, I think that need to also to show everyone that, what, I'm doing good, I'm doing well. So even if I have the deep inside, I have like this belief that I'm not doing good, like that I'm not good enough. But on the other hand, on the outside, you're looking like, you're on top of everything.
Of course.
And this is why I started the podcast today. It's not about logistics. It's not about the school lunches. It's not about the schedules. It's not about the after club.
Yeah.
It's much, much deeper. It's about our like inner world and our like mistakes and healing and our inner child.
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying to. I do have a lot of things to ask you. We still have time. I just want to ask you. I want to go back. You mentioned mistakes and you mentioned failures. So the first thing I want to ask you is one mistake that you think that you made as a mom. Just to relate to my 99 mistakes I made as a mom book.
Yeah. Just one.
Just how many? Okay, just one to start.
Oh, goodness. So, yeah, I mean, you did ask me that, and I was like, oh, this is a hard one, even just to choose one. Of course, again, it must be said that mistakes, Jane Nelson, who's one of the founders of Positive Discipline, she said, mistakes are opportunities to learn, right? And that's what, we teach our kids, and that's what I've taught my daughter since she was born, that it's like, okay, so mistakes are mistakes, but we also learn from them, and we don't need to regret them, and we don't need to like beat ourselves up over them. Having said that, there were many mistakes that have happened. One mistake, let's see. Definitely, I think one of the things that my daughter's 10 right now. Okay, so we still have time, so it's still okay. But I think one of the things that I might have done differently is to work less. I did take time off when she was born, and I spent like the first 2 years with her, which I'm super happy that I did that. It was a hard decision because I've always worked and I love my job, but it was the right decision. But I think once she started to go into school and she grew up, and I think there were moments that I was like, I think she's getting the message that work is a priority, which, and my own family was very like, my dad worked a lot, and he was there for us and he was engaged in everything, but he did work a lot. And we grew up knowing that he works a lot, and that is a priority for him. And that was something that I was like, I don't ever want my kids to feel that. I always want them to think that they are the priority and that they are number one, and that when they need me, I will be there for them. And I think, if I were to maybe change anything, I would probably spend less time focusing on work and more on her and the family. Yeah.
You still have time.
Exactly. I mean, she's 10, so we should still,
you can still, I'm sure. And I'm sure that she also has like a different point of view.
Yeah.
If you're talking to her. I want to ask you, so just to go like to keep it on the mistakes, how can parents go from I'm learning instead of I'm failing? How can we do that?
Well, I mean, of course, it's a mindset shift, right? So the very first thing is like you have to, just like we have a belief that we will never be good enough, we need to shift that belief and believe that we are enough. You know, we are not perfect parents. Our job is not to make our kids happy. You know, and this was like a big, like, what? You know, when I talk to parents and they're like, what do you mean? But I need my kids to be happy. No, happiness is just one feeling, right? But they need to also feel all the other feelings. And your job, your main job is not to be their friend and not to make them happy. Your job as a parent is to make them survive, to, you know, help them survive and thrive. So one of the things is to just let go of that idea that you need to be a perfect parent and that you need to have it all or do it all. And to really come to approach life as a parent or otherwise with self-compassion, with acceptance, and just avoiding the social comparisons, you know, and or at least keep them to a minimal, because realistically we can't completely not do that, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But just to see that it's a journey. And it's a beautiful journey to be a parent, because you learn a lot. You really learn a lot, maybe more than you would want. So just thinking
on the
that,
hard way.
You know, the hard way. Exactly. With 99 mistakes, right? And probably more.
The problem, this is the ones that made like the short list. I have
exactly.
like now, you know, for the preteen, for the teenagers. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. There's a lot of, you know, things that we learn along the way. And that's when did making mistakes and learning from them become such a bad thing? This is what I don't understand, because we teach kids this from a very early age, and at school, teachers are trying to encourage kids to, like, it's okay if you get this wrong. It's okay if you make a mistake. But for some reason, there's been a shift into perfectionism and into that I have to have it all figured out. But it's not. It's a journey, and you're learning along the way. And that's what, as an adult, you need to constantly remind yourself of that. And this is what we want to model for our kids as well.
I'm taking also, I want to take some notes. Luckily I have it recorded and I know that I will use it. And you can never stop learning. At least, you know, I feel that, you know, there's always something to learn, and always, and even, you know, like to re-listen to the same thing, or to, I know like everything what you're saying, it makes sense, but hearing it again, it just like gives me more confidence. And in general, I think for me, knowledge gives me a lot of confidence, or a lot of silence, calm, you know,
exactly.
So when I'm at home with them. You mentioned that everything starts. You wanted to say something? No.
Yes, you caught that. Yes, I actually want to just to add one more thing here, that because, you know, we want to be lifelong learners. And I think that's something that, you know, when you reach a point where you feel like you know everything and that I've got it all figured out, that's when you need to start sort of taking a step back and
do I know everything?
Do I know everything?
What is there that I don't know?
Exactly. And what, you know, that famous quote, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly.
You know, and if you're a lifelong learner and you have that mindset, then you're going to have curiosity, and you're going to have the ability to just open up that window and be like, I'm very interested to understand what's going on here, you know, and to understand, to learn more, to have the possibility that I could be wrong. And I think that's also very important.
To be honest, now I'm getting excited that the girls are they're gonna be teenagers, that I have like a whole, you know, so many things to learn about, you know. And I just hope that, you know, I was a problematic teenager, so I really, really hope that, you know, like even 10% of like what I've done, if they're gonna, I won't sleep at night. But I'll just
hopefully it's not in the genes.
Exactly. You mentioned the fact that everything starts, you know, a long time ago. And I want to talk a bit about, you know, the inner child and about healing. And I want to ask you, like for the first, I also have a story, but I will let you first answer, and then I'll have to share something with you. Maybe you will help me out to understand more. I want to ask you, why does parenting, you know, becomes like such that point of learning so many things and meeting those parts of ourselves that we already thought that they have been healed, but apparently they haven't. Why it's like awakening so many, I don't know, like let's say painful memories for us.
Our wounds, you know.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so before being a parent, the other relationship that actually does that is your partner. You know, if you get married, that is also very triggering. And then you start to have kids, and that's another point where you get also triggered. So any close, intimate relationship will bring you back to the very first close, intimate relationship you had, which was with your caregivers.
Yeah.
So these things, like some people have done some work on themselves and, maybe they go to therapy, they do some kind of personal development, and then they work on all of these triggers. They work on their possible traumas. They work on they do the inner child work. But what I discovered recently is that you never stop healing.
I agree.
And that's exciting and also really like, seriously, like this is never going to end. I have to spend a lifetime trying to figure out what happened and why and what to do about it. But it's so freeing when you can realize that. So there are parts of ourselves, right? And that's why it's called the inner child, because we have inner children, and we have, the infant, the toddler, the child, the teenager, the young adult. All of these are parts within us. Just because, for example, now you're an adult does not mean that all of those little parts
were deleted.
They're there. And I use this in therapy sometimes. The Russian doll.
The babushka.
Exactly, the babushka. Exactly.
I'm from Romania. Exactly. Like, you're teaching me the babushka. Like,
you know about it. You heard about it. But yeah, so.
No, but it's Russian. But yeah.
Exactly, and it's very relevant because some of them. I don't know what the standard number of dolls that are supposed to be in there, but usually 6, 7. They're about 6, 7. But there's a number
girls will
of
love
them.
this episode.
Exactly. All the kids, 6, 7.
6, 7.
But yeah, there's many dolls in there. And, it starts with the bigger one and then it keeps getting, until there's a tiny one. And that's how we are. You have all these layers and all these little parts of yourself. And a lot of them, sometimes they come up to protect you. Sometimes they come up because they're wounded, and they need some care and love. Sometimes an angry part comes out. Sometimes the part within you that is confident and strong and resilient. There's all these different parts of us that are within us that get triggered because our buttons are pushed by our partners, by our kids. They know how to do that, right? More than anyone else. That's what happens. So oftentimes you'll see parents responding to kids in a way that has nothing to do with the situation, right? I'm sure you felt that before.
Just a few times.
99 times.
Exactly, 99 times. But I'm a very good mom, so I'm just, I go and I meditate and I never scream and I never cry and I never get upset on the,
Exactly. Nothing. Never.
Yeah, you can ask them. I still, you know what? Anyway, finish the idea and then I just wanted to say that with all these mistakes and with everything that I have done, I still have a very good relationship with them. So I think, this is what matters at the connection, that we talked about.
Yeah.
So the fact that I have that connection with them and the fact that they trust me to share with me and the fact that they, I'm their, I've got their back, they know where to go if there's something.
Exactly.
So all the mistakes, we're done, I think. And I think we still managed to create that bond, that the trust link.
Yeah. I think what you said is so important, Luca, because this is exactly what we want parents to realize. You can make 1,000 mistakes and that doesn't matter,
More than 99?
More than 99. You can definitely make more than 99. You will. That's just life. We make mistakes and mistakes are there because you learn from them. That's how you learn. If you never do, then you're just going to stand still. So having said that, we also have to remember that kids are very forgiving. They are super. Sometimes I'm like, no, you shouldn't forgive that. By the way, you should not be okay that this just happened. But they are, and they're very, especially with younger kids, they're so quick to forgive and to move on. And they model something that I wish we as adults could sometimes do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And what you said about working on the relationship, working on the connection. So what you did here, obviously you did many things correctly, because even if you, do the worst thing, even if you shout at them, even if you make all these mistakes, but what Jane Nelson says, the message of love still gets through. And that's all that kids need, even when they're older.
That. I really love that.
The message of love has to get through. And they feel it. We always say they follow what you do more than what you say.
It's so true. Lead by example.
Exactly.
You know that I also have my background positive psychology, and so we're matchy.
It's bouncing back and forth. Yes,
I heard about that.
Exactly. But it's so true. It's a science. It's not based on this stuff works. And that's always what I tell parents. I'm like, just try it out and you'll see the transformation, because this has been going on from hundreds of years ago, my math might not be accurate, but this science of what humans need and what infants need. Attachment theory, right? A lot of people might be a little bit familiar with attachment theory, John Bowlby, and then after that, Mary Ainsworth, and they talked about attachment, right? And about what you just mentioned about infants as young as like super young, maybe like they did infant studies, and then, even with 2-year-olds, and how the mom or the primary caregiver is the secure base from which what you just mentioned, I can go out and explore the world. And I'm comfortable to come back when I need it.
Because she will be there to, no matter what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've formed a secure attachment, and the primary caregiver is that kid's safe haven. And that's the terminology that Bowlby used. And that applies all the way, even when kids are like in their 30s, 40s, whatever, they still need their parents. They still come back when they need it. And that is a secure attachment, that I'm courageous enough to go out and explore the world and be myself because I'm accepted, and I'm comfortable enough to go back to that secure base when I need it. So obviously you've created that with the girls.
I created something.
With the twins. Yeah.
You're also like, I'm trying not to interrupt here, but I have like so many to share, so many things to share, so many stuff.
And unless you do the work where you go back and you talk about these memories and you sort of almost reparent yourself. So and this is work I do obviously in therapy, and I recently got
I have a few subjects here that
we should do another episode where we're just doing that. But it's really fascinating work, and it doesn't have to be this like really dark, heavy, traumatic experience, because some people get very scared of like I'm not gonna sit on a shizlong and then have to go back and talk. It's not like that. But it's just seeing where we got discouraged along the way because of the messages that came to us, and sort of healing that inner child, and almost literally giving yourself a hug and a pat on the back and saying what you wish you would have heard at that time, what you wish like your mom or your dad had said to you, or your friend's mom, and like saying that and then believing it. And through doing that work and going into our conscious memories and early recollections, you're able to actually heal. So then the next time something like that happens, you're not super triggered.
I get it. Okay, noted. I'm loving that. I think it's just, I always say that after all the sessions, all the like interviews that I'm doing here, I'm learning so much. And it's like, for me, it's like a therapy, having you here today.
Oh, thank you, Luca.
Thank you for coming again. So I want to ask you, I'm looking at the time, just like it's flying. I can't believe that we're all almost like for an hour. And I want to ask you, relocate to happiness. So I want to ask you, what does relocate to happiness mean to you as a parent, and of course as a human?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think, we're in an expat community, right? We're people who, this is not our country of origin, if we're talking about Portugal, and we've come to this country and we've like literally relocated. So the way I see this phrase is like in many different, aspects, the actual concrete, tangible way of like, we actually did relocate. And I think a lot of people come to Portugal in search of something, maybe it's happiness, satisfaction, discovery, something. And I think relocating to happiness, I think you really have to know yourself first. I think you need to have awareness about who you are and acceptance and compassion, all the things that we talked about today. And then you relocate physically and metaphorically and emotionally and psychologically, in all those aspects of how do you become a lifelong learner, and how do you continuously work on yourself so that you can reach a point where you're not necessarily happy, but you're just satisfied. You're okay, And that sounds so simplistic, but it's so hard.
It's hard.
It's like people spend a lifetime trying to reach that, but it's in the striving, which is where life happens. It's not. They always say like it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely correct. You're like on the path to figuring out who am I, and what does my genuine self look like, and how do I want to show up in the world so that I reach that end destination of being okay and being happy. So, yeah.
I'm loving that. Now I'll have to ask you some some parting message. I know that you are going to a show to your daughter's school, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I would like to ask you something that something that I didn't ask you, and you would like to add something that you would like to ask me. Everything that you would like to our listeners
Some parting
to know.
words.
How can you know what? Let me ask you something else before. If somebody wants to work with you, how can they find you? Website, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever.
Yes. So thank you for that. So bad at marketing. I always forget to do that part. But
the most important part.
Exactly. Like so. So you can find me. My website is themindfulconnection.eu. You can find me on LinkedIn, May Kassem, and Instagram, May M Kassem, Kassem. And you can contact me in any of those ways. And parting words. Let's see. It's always hard to put everything into just like a few, nuggets. But
we have time.
It can go off. Yeah, I think really it's. I think what I want people to know is, we talked a lot about like imposter syndrome and about healing our inner child and the perfect parent. And I think just to remind ourselves that everything is okay and that we are okay and that you just have to sort of like shut off all the noise and all the external noise and just really look inwards and see, what do I need to be okay? And what does that mean for me without what other people think should be okay or what other people think I should do as a parent or as a mom or what my kids should look like, like who cares? If your child wants to leave the house in the morning with mismatched socks, or like their hair isn't brushed, who cares? Like, at the end of the day, in the bigger picture, does that really matter?
Exactly. We left without the bags at school, from home to school.
Without the actual bags.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what happened?
Nothing. Like, no, they were embarrassed. But I had to go back and...
But at the end of it, no big deal,
Exactly.
And I think you probably as a mom had decisions to make there of how you would react. Are you going to get angry and criticize them and make them feel discouraged because they already just got discouraged because they, we forgot it. Or this could be like a light,
joke,
it's a joke. It's at the end of it, what happened?
Proportions.
Exactly. Perspective. And I think that's also something important for us to remember, that just put things into perspective. And self-care, we can't do all of the good stuff that we're talking about today if we don't have this idea that I need to take care of myself. And I can't get into that because that's going to take a lot of time, what that means, another episode. But just to remind ourselves that we are enough and we are worthy and we will always be good enough. I think, that's
beautiful.
My parting
Thank
words.
you so much, May. And
Thank you,
I'm
Luca.
looking forward for a new episode with you on self-care and many more. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Luca, so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you.